Women in all their different roles, be it a mother, a sister, a wife, or a daughter, are the builders of the society and a major contributor to its development and flourishment, if and only if they were well educated and enlightened. For long centuries, women were denied the right for education, let alone the right to express their thoughts through publishing. But now in the 21st century, education has finally become a necessity for women, and their right for publishing is also guaranteed. So how did women reach to this end? Let's take you in a journey through Western history and literature to explore that.
The ages before the Renaissance were a time of poverty, diseases, wars, and ignorance. That's why it is also called the Dark Ages. Common people were denied many of the basic human rights, let alone women. Even during the Renaissance, which was a golden age of development and progress, women were still marginalized and considered inferior to men, and their duties were confined to the home and family life. Women's education was never preferred, and even males who received education were of higher classes. But during the Elizabethan age of Renaissance, women got more rights than before. Breaking the social conventions, Christine de Pizan was a famous writer. After her husband's death, she made a living as a professional writer, something that was extremely rare in the days before printing existed in Europe. She wrote several books defending the rights of women.
This age was the beginning of an open society, where individuals were free to pursue individual happiness and liberty. It witnessed great changes in science and explorations. Let me talk to you about women in the Age of Reason. Women's role in the Age of Reason was limited, and many professions were closed to them. However, they started stepping in and entering men territory. Eventually, no big changes happened, but women continued trying and asking for their rights in so many ways. Women didn't have big jobs as lawyers or doctors, but they did work as shoemakers and washerwomen. There were women who were publishers, but only those who inherited it from their past husbands or father. George Eliot, who is Mary Ann. Yes, Mary Ann is a woman who wrote books under a guy's name, so no one would know she's a woman. People read her books and they were very successful. After a while, that secret was revealed, but it didn't ruin her career as expected. She did go through hard personal criticism, though.
Though women education started to be more common, differences between male and female education were still present. Males went to grammar schools and were taught science, while women were expected to learn embroidery, music, and drawing, which were only learned to attract a husband. That means they will be neglected after marriage. Salons, starting in France during the Enlightenment, are places where women gathered and discussed a variety of topics. Rationality and individualism were famous ideologies that questioned women's role in the society. Intellectual mentalities resulting from salons and other ideas led women to fight for their natural rights, which education was on top of them. Women were also not able to publish their own books since they were viewed as men's properties and were only allowed to publish after the consent of males. Jane Austen was a famous author who educated herself in different fields by reading books from her father's library. She wrote a novel that was published in the Victorian age but was considered an Enlightenment novel due to its accurate representation of the age. Pride and Prejudice. The novel captured women during this age, and its protagonist was Elizabeth, who challenged the society's view of females' education and did not learn music or drawing. She eventually got married to a well-known and a rich man. What attracted him to her was not her beauty or her ability to play the piano and draw, but was her intellectual mind and thoughts. This sends a precious message to women to value themselves and to fight for what they believe they want, not what the society wants.
Even though gender inequality was still present in the Victorian society, it was a time when women education became of greater existence. Upper-class women were taught by governesses. Middle-class women were taught in public or boarding schools. Working-class ladies were not educated at all and only associated with domestic chores. Though most women were educated, writing and publishing were highly restricted. The Bronte sisters, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne, were the pioneer feminist novelists who challenged their patriarchal society in both reality and fiction. Their fictional heroines were promoting for gender equality, women education, and women empowerment. Ironically, the Bronte sisters were publishing their work under masculine names. Jane Eyre for Charlotte Bronte presents a strong feminist character. The novel also portrayed the conditions of women education at that time in light of the Brontes' actual experience. The boarding school of Lowood, for example, was portrayed as being a nightmare for girls with very poor and horrible conditions. It depicts the school of Cambridge, in which the Bronte sisters received their primary education and where eventually two of them have actually died. Despite all obstacles Jane has gone through, whether by the society's conventions or by the male characters in the novel, the story ends with Jane achieving an equal position as her male counterparts. In fact, women writers were fighting for their rights using the weapon of a paper and a pen. The survival and success of their literary work until today is definitely their greatest victory.
Yes, they say a woman's place is in the home, and I suppose as long as she's in the home, she might as well be in the kitchen.
In today's era, women are given complete and utter freedom to go by life as they please. Their accomplishments, demands for rights, and education are all acknowledged, and most importantly, women are finally perceived and recognized as significant members in society. However, this level and amount of revolution was not achieved overnight. Only a century ago, things were quite different.
What if I told you I want to be a writer?
Oh, here we go. Mira, that's no way to find a husband.
I'm not getting married. Not now. Not ever.
Oh.
It is a known fact that for any kind of revolution or change and development to happen, education is the key. And that was exactly the first step that women took in the 20th century. Universities such as Oxford and Cambridge gave women the opportunity to participate more in society, even though the women were only allowed to pursue education and not career. This is where the idea of equality began to rise. Soon enough, women began to push harder and demanded to pursue their professions just as men could. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any states on account of sex. Although they existed for a long time before that, with the increased education and modernism, writing and publishing truly began to be heard in the mid-20th century. It was where the women liberation movement started. The women liberation movement was a collective struggle for equality that was most active during the late 1960s and 1970s. It ought to free women from oppression and male supremacy. As a result of the movement, women started to create their own literary work and publishing houses. They began to learn printing skills and started their own bookshops and magazines. All of this was viewed as a way of grabbing the methods for social generation from the man-centric state and media. Women in the 20th century were mostly efficient and active as artists and writers. Both the style of writing and content were dramatically changed during that time. Realistic fiction that described women's day-to-day lives and the role of women and themes of feminism were applied by many female writers and authors, hoping to change women's role in marriage and society that were so harshly imposed on them. Virginia Woolf's novel To the Lighthouse is a perfect representation. Her characters, Mrs. Ramsay and Lily Brescoe, are two characters in Woolf's novels who represented women in the 20th century, each in a different way. Mrs. Ramsay, on one hand, was the perfect representation. She was a typical housewife who looked and acted like society expected her to be, where marriage and family is a woman's priority in life. On the other hand, Lily Brescoe is the complete opposite. She believed that women are equal to men, and she challenged the traditional ideas and practices of society. In the end, Lily managed to prove their capacity and equality to men.
As time seems to unveil rapidly, we have now reached the 21st century. After years of patience and exhaustion, historical women have managed to pave the way for the rest of the world to walk on. Women have been pushing through and have made both education and publishing a norm amongst the lives of women. Women can now freely write and publish under their true name, and can even fly around the world promoting their writings. Regarding education, women are now able to pursue what they wish to learn and teach what they are passionate about. The breakthrough of the roles of women is shown to have opened countless doors. Women are now able to grasp every opportunity in front of them and strive toward them. We can see how the lives of women changed immensely in this beautifully captured movie, Eat, Pray, Love. The sequence of events portrays the 21st century woman as strong, independent, smart, and enthusiastic about life. The main character, Liz Gilbert, can be seen indulging in everything that life can offer, through traveling around the world alone, without any social constraints, and aiming to understand her own self.